All right, hello and welcome back to another exciting edition of Coach Willis's YouTube channel. I'll be your host for today. My name is Coach Willis, and we are going to draw this slant block. You can take a look at the dimensions on it now if you're going to try to approximate them when we scale this down for some of the later drawings. But remember, because we're not doing an isometric or an orthographic, your drawings don't necessarily have to be scale. We just want them to look proportionate. Okay, so to get my paper set up at first, just like we did with the other drawings we have done before, I'm going to divide it down the middle so I can get two drawings on each page. So that means a mark at 5.5 at the top, mark at 5.5 at the bottom. I'm going to connect those with one nice clean line. I am going to write at the top which drawings are going to go which, just to help me remember when I label them. So there's the rough sketch, and we'll do the oblique on this side. When we go to the other side, we'll label those also. So down here, I want to put my title, which is, or my name of my block. This one is the slant block. I want to sign it, put my class period, and I want to also go ahead and date it. So for my rough sketch, if you can remember some of what we talked about a few days ago, I want to use short pencil marks, light pencil marks. This is the only one that we do that we don't use a ruler on. And I want to try to make the object look kind of like it naturally sits towards me, okay? So a lot of times I kind of start on a slant here for the bottom of my object. And I kind of sketch that out as I go. I'm going to try to not turn my paper as I do this so it stays square for you guys. I'm going to call that my overall length. I'm going to try to come up and get my height at one end, and then I know that it slants clear down on the other end. I also know that it comes out a little ways here that would be parallel to this bottom edge before the slant starts. So I'm going to try to draw a line that goes parallel to that bottom line for just a little bit. Then I'm simply going to connect these 2 points. And you want to remember how I did that when you go on to your later drawings, because we can take our lines that are right on the y-axis and the x-axis, and then we can just connect them for that slant. Once I've got that front face drawn on the sketch, I like to go back and just sketch in some depth lines right off of the corners. When those are sketched in, then I can bring in my other lines for the back side of the object. Notice those should be parallel. These should also be parallel. This one and this one. And then my my slant line should also end up parallel. So I may have to adjust the front a little bit. We'll see. Or not. Okay? That looks pretty good for a rough sketch. Remember, your rough sketch is just something you get down on paper quickly to give you a quick idea of what the object is. On to the oblique. On the oblique, again, it doesn't have to be perfectly down to scale, but I try to make it look somewhat proportional, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and use a ruler here. I'm going to try to start somewhere in the middle. Since the object was 6 inches long, real world, I'm just going to scale it down to 3 inches. Remember, I'm starting parallel with the title block here. 3.5 inches tall in real world would equate to 1 3/4 on our drawing. So here we are so far. Notice I've got 3.5 here, 2 here, 1.5 here. We'll start with our 1.5 over here. Half of 1.5 would be, very good, 3/4. and half of 2 up here at the top is going to be 1. Notice I'm trying to take good care that I keep my ruler nice and parallel with the existing lines. Once I have those 2 points, I can go ahead and connect them for the slant. And then on an oblique, I'm sure that you remember what we try to do is come up with 45-degree depth lines. Because we don't have a triangle, we don't have a protractor, we're just estimating and we're trying to keep things consistent as we go around. It's not perfect, but it's what we've got. So for my depth lines, I'm going to make them all about 3/4 of an inch long. I like to start somewhere in the middle so that I can use that line as a gauge for my other lines when I try to make sure that they are parallel also. So there's a depth line, there's a depth line. We got to get a couple more in here. Those are the depth lines I need. Remember, lines on the y-axis should be parallel to other lines on the y-axis when you connect these. The slant, one end is going to connect to the other. And the top part, I want to make sure that this ends up parallel also. It looks like one of my depth lines is a little bit long, but that's not a big deal. I'll just erase after I get this drawn in. You see those two are just not quite clean. Not a huge deal. I'll take care of those, okay? Let's do 1 point on the other side. Actually, now that I said that, let's wait. I'm going to make that a separate one so I end up with enough time, okay? So this first video here, we just got through rough and oblique, and on the next one we will go on to 1 point and 2 point.